going to talk to you about the imagination and its role inside of creation. Now, let me ask you this question. Like, how much of your life right now is built by what you are consuming instead of what you are creating? Let me ask you that once again. How much of your life right now is being built by what you are consuming instead of what you are creating? All right. Now, I want to tap in today of getting you inside of the imagination and inside of the creator, because living in consumer mode is not going to get you the results that you're looking for. And consumption, it often feels like it's being productive. It feels like maybe that you're learning something or you're being informed, but it doesn't actually create the change and the transformation that you're looking for. The greatest transformation is going to happen when you step into routines and habits that cause you to create. All right. Now, everything that gets built first in the imagination. Now, I worked in construction for a decade, and the way that this plays out is we never built anything without plans. And there's a little more detail than just plans also. There is kind of city aesthetics that come into play, and there's architectural stuff as far as design that comes into play. And then there's structural engineering that comes into play. So it's not just like a single person plan that kind of creates this thing. And that is that there's multiple different people in whom their imagination has created this design, a blueprint, a conception, an idea, a kind of what if scenario, like what if, and then it needs to step into execution thereafter. But execution without a plan is going to be disastrous. Now, I built models before, and model homes are especially tedious. And the reason why they're tedious is the schedule is a lot smaller, because you're creating a showroom, and the faster you get the showroom up, the faster you're going to get sales, right? So you literally shrink the cycle into a 60-day work cycle, which is absolutely crazy. But beyond that is the first prototype. There's a lot of things that go wrong in the execution. And there's a lot of things that you can design on paper, but when you start the plan and the execution and the carrying out, it doesn't fit. And that is that there is plan revisions. There's consulting with the engineers to create fixes, and it is a disaster. But once you get the workable prototype and you get all the kinks out, then it is just smooth sailing from then on out. And you just begin to create. All right. Now, everything that gets created starts first inside of somebody's imagination. And somebody had a concept, somebody had a vision for it, somebody had a mental picture for the thing that we see today. Now, I look around this room, and it doesn't matter kind of like what it is. This design originated in somebody's kind of imagination first. And that they imagined this thing of how it was going to be. And then they begin to sketch out what it was going to look like. They had creative plans to execute that, right? And so we look at everything around us that was created in that fashion. And then we got to ask ourselves, well, then how are we going to create? Are we going to start first with the imagination? Now, I've already talked to you about desire, about faith, about programming yourself and these different realities. But the imagination is what forms everything. Okay. Before you have a podcast, you have an imagination. Before you have a book, it's in your heart, your thoughts, and in your imagination. Before you ever create an offer inside of your podcast with your business or your service-based product, there was an imagination behind it that created this thing. All right. And so today we're going to talk about this imagination. So before you can create anything of value, you have to imagine it first. Before you can take your client on a journey, you must imagine the destination and the outcome that you want to take them on. All right. So you're going to have to use your imagination. Now, it's no wonder that those who have an active, vivid imagination, or those who had a lot of daydreaming when they're young, or those who really failed to pay attention inside of the structure of class and all these different things, it's no wonder that those people seem to be the most successful. And that is that they were able to create a mental picture of what it is that they wanted to create. And that mental picture was what drew them to that. Okay. Imagination. Now, of course, I'm not asking you to begin to daydream, but I'm asking you to look at creative as an expression of the imagination. And how can I begin to imagine big things? Because the results you are getting is going to be correlated and connected to your imagination. And that is, if you don't dream big, you will guarantee that you will not hit anywhere close, right? I'm sure you've heard the saying that if you shoot for the moon, you'll hit the stars, right? And that's the analogy here, is that using your imagination and what can happen with this, and let your imagination go big. Now, in most success coaching, you are going to have somebody present to you big, hairy, audacious goals, right? And that is, I think they call it BHAG. And there's a lot of different ways to communicate this. Everybody has kind of jumped on this bandwagon and called it something else. But what it is a goal that is so big that you cannot achieve it on your own. And you start asking yourself the question, how am I going to do this? That's where the imagination kicks in. So if you're limited in your mindset and your frame, and you're not dreaming big or thinking big or using your imagination, and you just go into the routine of doing something without the expectation of creating something big, you can't really complain for the results that you never set, right? You're going to get whatever you get, and you should probably be happy and satisfied with that, because you never set your intention, you never engaged your imagination inside of the process. And that is, this whole endeavor of being a creative works best if you have a future vision of yourself that is grandiose. This is the reason why some of the greatest leaders are some of the most grandiose. And that is, they have big thinking, big ideas, and often seem a tad bit delusional at the beginning. You're going to do what? Right? Grandiose ideas. And so we got to think big. We got to step into the creator identity. We got to imagine, use our imagination in all of these different processes of creation. Okay. Now, my personal opinion is that creation is in a rapid transformation. And that is, over the past, we could probably just throw like 50 years out. That in the past 50 years, the people stepping into the identity of a creator or a creative has exploded exponentially. And that is, over the past 50 years, there has been more businesses created, more books created, more courses, more all of this stuff created than the previous years combined, right? And that is, we are undergoing an explosive creativity, a moment of massive creation. And I don't know what it is about the imagination, but the imagination of people seem to be expanding. And that is what they deem as possible. Now, 100 years ago, you might work in a factory or a mine or whatever it is, and the possibilities absolutely seemed like you were limited in some way or fashion. And that this was your lot in life. It's not a lot, but it's your life. And just suck it up and live this thing, right? Well, we're in a time now where people are thinking, man, I can get paid to be a creative. Man, I can launch my own business. I could do this, that, and the other thing. These dream ideas of these kids saying, I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be a podcaster, or whatever it is. These are now within the fingertips of multiple different people. Here I am living a life of a podcaster in a laptop life inside of my home every single day, living this life that people only dreamed of 50 years ago. They couldn't even fathom kind of living this reality that we're living here today. It's absolutely amazing what we're going through. Now, there are going to be people that will not innovate, and that is they can't use their imagination or to see something different. And there are such unfortunates. But I'm of the high persuasion that you're listening to this and you view my content all the time because you want to step into the creator and an imagination that could produce something very positive and good inside of your life. All right. So it starts first, number one, is that we have to step into a creator mindset. And that is you got to embody the identity of a creator. You might ask me, Tim, well, how do you embody the identity of a creator? You ready for this? It's going to floor you. Create. That's how you embody the identity of a creator. And to have this is that you have to integrate habits of creation because there's nothing greater that's going to communicate that you are a creator than the consistent habit of creating. Now, we can do false positive psychology that's out there and begin to tell ourselves things that are not true, and that is we're not creating anything inside of the world, and we're going to call ourselves a creator over and over again and believe it's true. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to embody the identity of a creator by integrating in your daily habits that you are creating something. All right? If it's music, if it's poetry, if it's a podcast, if it's writing, whatever it is, wealth, people are creating wealth all the time. Integrate your daily habits that reaffirm that you are a creator. Now, when it comes to being a consumer and a creator, now, we all have to consume, and we're born into a world where consumption is the main frame. I mean, from development on up, we are sponges and we are consumers, and we're consuming for our very survival, right? So the consumer mindset comes absolutely inherent or natural to all of humanity. And that is, we are going to be consumers. We consume food, we consume time, we consume energy, we consume all of these different things, right? But there comes a moment inside of maturity and growth where we're going to become a provider. And that is we step into maybe providing a safety, security, providing for a spouse. And then it goes into children, and then it goes to integration to society and becoming interdependent. But the kind of growth and evolution that I am talking about is that you step into being a solution-oriented person and creating something for humanity that solves problems. Okay? So before you can ever step into creating something good, you're going to have to imagine and to see yourself as somebody who creates and then begin to take the actions necessary that reinforce that identity. Now, a consumer, and we are a consumer society. Like I said, social media is built upon consumption. And that is, if they can get your attention, you are the commodity. They are trying to get your attention. And if you're not paying for the service, you are the service, right? That you can go across the board on anything. If it's free, you are the commodity. And that's just the bottom line of it. But they set us up into consumption. And so instead of showing up into these different avenues and being a provider, like what value can I provide? What conversation can I get into? What can I post? How can I do this? They turn us into consumers, and that is we just show up to consume. And that is they got our attention. That is what should I watch? What is trending? What are they doing? When you step up to be a creator, it's I am doing things for other people to watch. I'm setting some sort of trend. I'm influencing culture. People are looking at what I'm doing, right? So a creator asks, what do people need? What perspective? What am I seeing that other people are not seeing? What can I create? What can I make? What problems can I solve? I don't show up on social media to consume. That doesn't mean that I don't go through some content of my favorite influencers and stuff like that. I do. It's very intentional, the consumption that I do. And I don't show up on social media to scroll on any channel. If I'm on LinkedIn, I'm there to begin to post articles and get engagement and talk with people. If I'm on Facebook, I'm engaging, building relationships and conversations and all these different things. And that I spend quite a bit of time inside of creator mode in social media because I'm here to build, right? So it starts with I'm going to not spend so much time in consumption that I'm going to spend the majority of my time in creation. And so the way this looks like is when you grab your phone, first of the day, whenever that is, are you going there with your intention set to build? Or are you going there with the intention of consumption? If your first mindset is consumption, you're probably going to be using social media in a detrimental fashion. And that is, it's not going to build your business or credibility or any of those things. You're going to be doom scrolling. You're going to be looking at what everybody else is doing and all these different things. And it's not going to bring you the success that you're looking for. All right. So a creator uses his imagination. Imagination is the key to creation. If you want to build anything great, it starts in your mind first. So let's go to your podcast episodes for a minute. Okay. Your podcast doesn't have to be one format. It's literally a creative mode of expression. And that is, you don't have to fall in line with what everybody else is doing. And there are so many modes and methods of communication that you need to begin to allow your imagination to think this thing through of what could be a possibility. Because each way that somebody shows up in a podcast episode is according to what they imagine. Now, I imagine doing these solos and walking you through a system and process because my goal is to create 4 books that establish me inside of creating a podcast business, right? So I'm imagining reaching people through these lives, and I'm imagining the end product of the book when I walk people through the different stages. And at the end result, you can guarantee that if you reach out to me 3 months from now and ask me, do I have 4 rough drafts for books centered around podcasting and creative? And I will guarantee you that I will. And the reason why I will is because I imagined it to be so. Okay. I created it first in my imagination, and then I'm showing up daily with the execution. And the end result is I'm going to reach people here on social media. And the end result is that I'm going to have 4 books that are related to business and podcasting to make sure that I'm establishing myself with credibility and authority in the space. That's my intention. That's my desire. That is what I see. Okay. That's my imagination. So I'm using my solos to create that outcome. Do you need to do that? Not if you don't imagine it. It's my imagination. It's not your imagination. Use your imagination. What it is that you want to create. And each one can accomplish something different. So a solo episode would accomplish for me a chapter of a book. A solo episode for you might be education, information, transformation, getting somebody to take action. Like, use your imagination. What is it that you're trying to achieve with the mode and method of communication? Right? Same thing with interviews. Like, you could do interviews so many different ways. I mean, you can tennis back and forth with inspiration and have it be off the cuff. You could do deep dives into a topic with somebody else. You could have somebody else tell their story, and you can pull and extract the story out of them. You can coach somebody in real fashion and live right there on real time. You can do so many different things. It's like, so get creative about it. You can take Q&A questions and both you and your guest can answer them. You can have a 4-person panel that is talking about a specific topic. Like, the sky's the limit, dream big. Q&As. You can have a preset of questions that you give out to your tribe, and it's audience-built interaction. And so all the people that ask the question inside of your group You can let them know that, hey, I used your question on the Q&A. Here's the episode. And then so if you did 10 questions, you pulled the audience in and had them participate. So you're going to probably get 10 new listeners, especially on that episode, because they're kind of in it vicariously, right? Q&As are amazing. Storytelling of your story and your journey, storytelling of somebody else's journey, storytelling of history, of marketing. Like you can pull all kinds of different things in and begin to tell stories. That's very tapping into the imagination, right? I mentioned this, but hot seat coaching is that you bring somebody in and you say, hey, can we do a hot seat coaching? And we're going to cover this topic and just kind of set the frame beforehand. Yeah, sure, no problem. And then set it up, do it live, and let's go. Man, this would be so beneficial for people. You could do mini series that is connected 3-7 episodes around one theme. I utilize this a lot. If I'm going to do a podcast, it is going to be like preacher status. And that is, I'm going to do a 7-part series. This is the 5th part in a 7-part series. Now, you may not know it, but I know it because I know what I'm creating. This is the 5th part in a 7-part series. So I'm creating a mini series that is connected to success, right? So mini series. Roundtables. You can get the business people inside of your locale and do roundtable discussions podcast. Super neat. You can do case studies, which I recommend, is that your customers are the greatest testimonials, right? And so always interview your customers. Put that inside of the customer journey, that there is a point in the journey, which is the time that they got the biggest results. And so you got win, and you got a result. And then maybe you got a real big result. That is the best time to put inside of the client journey the podcast interview that is connected to the testimonial. Okay. It is in fact, after that is the best time to ask for a referral. So put that inside of the customer journey. So it's all laid out. You're interviewing, you're creating another connection, and they're getting results. You're getting a testimonial. They're sharing their wins, and then you're asking for a referral. Boom, 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 boom. Put it in the process. All right. You'll get results. And lives. I love doing lives. There's going to be a time when I do interactive lives. I did a couple years ago. I did an interactive live shows. And it was absolutely amazing. I loved it. The whole platform was set up for live interaction. It was really, really neat. And so it wasn't difficult to pull off. I love pulling people on stage. I love asking them what they're hearing, what kind of feedback they got in real time. What are they struggling with? Like these live interactive. If you were to ask me, Tim, what do I think the future of podcasting is going to be? And I firmly believe that it is going to be a interactive kind of live host show scenario. Like we're bringing back the Ricky Lake Oprah days, but virtually and online, to where the audience gets a little bit more participation inside of the process. Because if you can pull people in and give them an experience that is an interactive sort of live, let me tell you, you're going to be so ahead of the game, right? And the reason why I think this is going to be the case is because, 50% of the content out there is going to be AI based. And that is, it's going to be the picture of the person or AI generative of the person. It's not going to be really them. And that the script is going to be inputted in. And so the talk is going to be their voice, but it's not going to be really them. And so they're going to have this kind of whole AI sort of thing. And I guarantee you that most of the content, or a lot of the content, probably a half, is going to be AI generated in some way or fashion. All right. And so that means there's going to be a kickback. And what I mean by that is that there's going to be a need for a personal touch. In fact, with the innovation of AI, the people who are personal touch people, I think, are going to be able to thrive inside of this environment, because People are going to go the AI route for a lot of different things. And they're going to realize that it's really hard to connect with the machine. And they would rather have like an attachment and an emotional connection with another human being. This is why human social services with connection will thrive in the future. But let me tell you, if you get on the bandwagon of interactive live podcasts, you are going to stand out in a culture that is moving towards kind of fakery. All right. Now that's the imaginative episodes. So I can imagine there's all kinds of things that I can do, all kinds. Just use your imagination. All right. Use your imagination. Now, imagination for episode creation. And that is, can I use my imagination to what I can see the other person on the other end? That is my listener. Can empathetically put myself in their shoes and imagine what it is like to be where they're at and to be in the pain that they have and what they are going through. And can I imagine that? Because that's going to help you create the possibilities and the solutions for them. One of the greatest ways to craft something is inside of the shoes of your target avatar. Now, don't be thinking about you because you're probably 3 to 5 steps ahead. You have to get into the mind of the version of you that was at that place and location so you can understand the needs, the problems, and the pains that they are experiencing. You have to use your imagination to do that. You have to put yourself inside of their shoes. When you create an episode, you have to use your imagination. I used my imagination when I was creating this skeleton about imagination. So I sat down and I was creating this skeleton for where I wanted to take people. And I started out with a simple thought, is that imagination is so key to creation, is that people need to start tapping into this. In fact, it is such a key ingredient to creation that you will not create very well without an active, vivid imagination. That was the thought that I had. All right. And so then I'm thinking, well, how does imagination play out inside of creation? And more specifically, a podcast, how does imagination connect with that? And then I fleshed it all out. I used my imagination to create what it is that I'm speaking to you about today. So I have an end in mind. And the end in mind is for creatives to get more creative, to step into the identity of a creator, to begin to use your imagination and do habits and behaviors that reinforce that identity. All right? That's what I'm trying to do. All right. So if you can imagine the episode, then you can communicate it in a way that is going to produce transformation. And that is, if you can't imagine it, what kind of mental picture do you think you're going to produce in somebody else? They're not going to be able to imagine it either. And so creating this frame for this episode, just get a clear mental picture of where you want to take somebody and use your imagination to do so. All right. Now, when it comes to creating a business, a lot of business, especially in marketing, is an imaginative process. And that is the services and the offers you provide are initially a figment of your imagination. The podcast launch course that I just created, completed, done, it was all a figment of my imagination. All right. Figment of my imagination. So when it comes to what am I going to create with my podcast? Am I going to create a business with it? Am I going to give myself permission to succeed with it? Am I going to use it as a vehicle to create wealth and sustainability for me? That has to do with your imagination. Now, if you imagine it as being or doing nothing according to your faith, be it unto you. But if you can have a positive expectation of good in your future, and that is if you can see this thing and use your imagination and have that imagination pull you to it, you're going to be a lot more successful. Now, when it comes to creating offers, sky's the limit. It's all connected to your imagination. So when it comes to like your opt-ins and your free gifts and how you're going to capture emails, it's all in your imagination. What do you imagine putting out there? What are you going to test to see if it's going to work? It's all a figment of your imagination. Maybe you are going to create books and courses, imagination. Maybe you're going to create a coaching program, a mastermind. It's all imagination. Maybe you're like me, that you're going to create a done for you kind of like premium white glove service. It's all imagination. All right. So setting up your offer is going to be a figment of your imagination. And so the best thing that I can give you to step into the identity of a creator that utilizes his imagination for good is to imagine it without limitations. Begin to see it without any barriers or restrictions. Dream big. Now, inside of my space is that there's some very big people in my space. I've checked out their websites. I've seen their offer. I see their credibility and how confident they are and all these different things. And I see the price point that they're selling people at, and my jaw just drops. I'm like, wow. Right. And I see that in the future vision of myself to get to the point of authority and credibility and the network and the influence that I would be able to confidently do that. Now, to be able to do that, of course, you have to start somewhere and you have to build up, right? And that is when it comes to a service that if you haven't charged $100 yet and got consistent results with $100, then it's going to be really hard to go to $500. And if you go into and you skip, you're not really going to have the energy and the confidence to begin to close. Right? But there is a time where you kind of have to step out. And that is maybe your service is $500 a month and that you feel like you can provide more value and that you can increase the monthly. Once you begin to get your first close at the new rates, there's something that happens inside of success and what you communicate to yourself that you're able to close at that rate now because you've done it. Now, there's nothing that communicates confidence more than experience. You've done it, right? You got to work your way up. And there was no way that I would be able to close somebody at $2,500 a month, and we have in the past, that if I haven't worked my way up through the process of charging different, right? And now there is a confidence that, yes, I have the ability to close at $2,500 a month because I've done so multiple different times, right? And so I look at these guys who are charging, some of the ones that I seen on the website. I mean, they were up to, $10,000 a month. And I'm like, wow, I would like to get to that place. And then it's creating the offer that is good enough, use your imagination, and it is getting to the network, to the right people to see your offer, use your imagination on how to get inside of those networks to be able to pull something off like that. And that is that there's no way that I would be able to charge $2,500 a month and stay in a small, limited scarcity circle, because those people in that circle will never, ever pay that amount of money, right? For some people, that's half their salary for the month, depending, right? If they're $60,000, $70,000 a year, right? And so you have to use your imagination inside of your offers and your creativity and how it's going to work. All right. Now, lastly, is use your imagination for your client transformation. What is the best possible scenario, the best possible place that you can take people to, right? And then begin to look and to find ways to execute that and carry that out. Try to create a predictable process that will get the exact thing that you have imagined for your customer. Now, the reason why we are able to launch a podcast and get somebody started and to get somebody influencing and reaching thousands and thousands of people in a very, very short period of time is because I imagined it to be so. And then I found out, how am I going to begin to find out how to do that. So I started asking the right questions. And it's funny how God works is that if you start using your imagination and if you start asking the right questions, you are hyper tuned and aware to the different things inside of your life, and you utilize and you take advantage of those things because you are looking and you're ready and you are seeing it. Okay. So what does your customer journey look like in the end? All right. So imagination is where creation starts, and then build it into reality. That is your podcast business, Imagine Big. That is your podcast episodes, imagine and use your creativity on what you can create. Imagine your products and your services. Imagine where you're going to take your customer, and let your imagination be the center point that pulls you like gravity to the very thing that you're trying to create. If I was a preacher, I would ask for an amen to you.